Moving to a new city can be really hard on anyone. There's all the packing, the unpacking, and for kids especially, it's really hard to be able to make new friends in a city that you know nobody. You essentially have to start completely over, and that can be really, really difficult on a lot of people. But for Xander, moving becomes a lot harder when he realizes that the house that his family has decided to live in is essentially haunted. Or at least there's some kind of weird energy that surrounds the place that makes it almost like a portal to different places and different worlds. For instance, one of the first things that Xander realizes when he moves into the house is there seems to be this weird sensation of being able to hear a person that could be right next to you, but they're honestly on the other side of the house. And he's not really sure how to deal with that. Also, later on, Xander and his brother David find out that there is a linen closet in the boys' bedroom that is able to teleport them to a locker in the school that they are supposed to be attending within the next week. 30 years prior, a supposed murder-suicide case had taken place in this house, which is why a lot of people in the town believe it to be either haunted or at least have some kind of weird energy about it. But Xander and David are not so sure if that's the only case that is happening in this house. In the first novel of the Dreamhouse Kings series, House of Dark Shadows by Robert Liparulo, we follow Xander and his younger brother David as they decide to adventure through the house that they are now living in. Now, my overall thoughts on the book was that it was actually really, really good. For a kind of more upper middle grade towards YA horror fiction novel, it was really interesting. I don't even know if I would consider it so much as horror as maybe just a starting out in the thriller kind of genre for younger readers. I really enjoyed this novel because it really seemed to capture a very interesting story that was very good to get young readers into the more thriller horror side of fiction, which I thought was really interesting. You know, there's a lot of middle grade novels that will get you into the more sci-fi and fantasy fiction area. I haven't seen many novels for middle grade students that are driving towards the thriller horror side. So this is a really interesting story to be able to see. Now, it does delve a little bit into the sci-fi fantasy-esque thing because of the portals and the weird energy that surrounds the house. But I think it plays more towards the thriller and horror side because of all of the suspense that is built up in the story and the fact that there is some very gruesome things that happen in the house that normally many people that are middle grade readers would not be accustomed to. So I think it's definitely not gruesome to the point where it is not at all intended for a middle grade student, but there is quite a bit of violence, murder, stuff like that, in order to get them prepared for what is going to be seen in thriller and horror novels. It also kind of plays into a bit of a mystery portion because there's a lot of questions that Xander and David especially come up with as they are looking at the house and finding all of these things about the house, about the owners that have had it prior to them, especially when they find out that there was a murder-suicide case that was going on in the house. So there's a lot of cool things that I think this book really delves into that kind of gets readers into a kind of interesting path to different kinds of genres that they may be interested in. More so, I feel like, to the thriller horror side, but still does play in a lot of other genres as well. The novel was mostly from Xander's narration. However, there was certain points in the novel that played into another character that I will not explain because that kind of delves into more of the plot, and I want you guys to be able to read this for yourselves if you're interested. And so he plays a very big part in the story that can be spoiled very easily, so I don't really want to play into how he is, but there is multiple narrators in the story between Xander and this other character. Xander more so than the other characters though, however, because he is the one that is finding all this information about the house and finding out kind of what exactly it is about this house that makes it so creepy. Xander's narration was actually really, really interesting because he definitely had the 15-year-old kind of voice that I would imagine, especially of a child who is, or a teenager for that matter, who is going through the process of moving and having to move and then kind of being in this house that has this really weird vibe. Xander's narration was actually really interesting too because he did play a lot on humor, especially with the dynamics between him and his brother David, who was only 12 years old in the story. So there's about a 3-year age difference between the two. And I cannot explain how happy it made me that Robert Liparulo actually incorporated a lot of interesting brotherly dynamics, especially with older siblings and younger siblings, because the way that the two of them really kind of clashed and clicked at the same time was really interesting, and it actually made me feel like these two were real brothers and they weren't just two separate characters. There was actually a real connection between the two of them, and there was some kind of chemistry between the two of them, and it really made me happy because I feel like if you have characters that are brothers, you need to exemplify how they are brothers and kind of give examples as to how that relationship is shown, whether it's by wrestling or by making rude comments to each other or what have you, however it is that really brothers face like each other in the story. I definitely do think that this is more for a upper middle grade to lower YA audience because there is a lot of talk about things like murder and a lot of gruesome things that kind of come up, especially when they start talking about the murder-suicide case that was in the house. And also, there are some things that I feel like will go over some younger readers' heads as far as jokes and little quips and stuff like that. So I would recommend that this to be for more of a maybe upper middle grade, maybe 7th or 8th grade to younger YA readers, because I think that they will still be able to understand it and they won't be super terrified of the story. But if you're like my sister, you might get a little creeped out by what how the house is described, and you may think of it as some kind of house that you know well and might creep you out a little bit, but I don't think it'll be too much to where you'll be absolutely terrified of anything. But yeah, that's basically all I had to say about House of Dark Shadows by Robert Liparulo. I will be reading the other 2 books in the series. The next one is going to be Watcher in the Woods, and I'm kind of excited to see how this one goes because I really like the way that House of Dark Shadows kind of set up this whole story, and I'm interested to see what else Xander and David and even Toria may get into, their younger sister, which is funny because their youngest sister's name is Victoria and they call her Toria, and my younger sister's name is Victoria, but we call her Tori. So it's just weird that I had that very interesting connection with her being the youngest sibling and Tori is my younger sibling. So I don't know, it was just a funny connection I made. But yeah, so Watcher in the Woods will be the next novel that will be coming out for my reviews. But thank you guys so much for joining me in this review of House of Dark Shadows. If you guys enjoyed it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below to subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys!